Selective mutism is able to be annoying because if you're in a voice call, for example, and this is something I've also experienced in the past myself, if I'm ever in a voice call and if I have a conversation with someone and then I start having a random thought inside of my mind, I start having a thought inside of the background in my mind that essentially tells me that the person who's actually listening to me is extremely bored and that they have absolutely no interest in hearing me continue speaking and that I should stop speaking or that I should change the subject. Now, this is a classical example of selective mutism because, again, the thought actually overrides the original intentionality on you even attempting on saying something out loud, on you actually speaking. Okay, so first, before that thought even arises, you are just speaking completely normally and naturally as well. And then afterwards, the thought arises and it starts clouding your entire thinking, and now you start having a lack of intent on speaking. So first, you start off with a very strong intention, a very strong desire on speaking, and then afterwards it ended up actually getting reduced, sometimes even to zero, and now you are entirely mute because of this thought of some kind that you are still actually trying to address, because now that is an outcome that you're actually fearful of, and you go mute because of it. Now, sometimes it can happen very fast. Sometimes a thought is able to arise so suddenly that you actually go mute fairly fast, but other times it just lingers there until you finally lose the intent, the full intent on speaking altogether. Or sometimes you have the intentionality sort of there, and so you sort of like, sort of have a lot of self-doubt in your mind as you are actually vocalizing words. So that can also slow you down a lot as well. So in this case, is very different from stuttering, since inside of selective mutism, fear, meaning a thought of some kind in this example, for instance, or actually in any example, since this example actually covers any example. But the whole point is that the underlying fear actually makes you go muted. That actually makes you essentially block inside of that very moment. Okay, so the entire point is that you actually have to address the fear itself at that point in order to stop selective mutism. So there's only two very effective ways on how that is able to be accomplished. And yeah, let me take out my neuroscience cap for a second. Okay, so the whole point is this: there's only two ways. The first way is avoidance. And so avoidance simply means that you have to take an action in order to actually overcome or reduce the odds of that fear even happening. So for example, if I'm in a conversation and that thought arises and it keeps firing off in my brain that he's very bored, that the listener is very bored of the things I'm saying, and then afterwards I can start seeing how that original intentionality on speaking actually is getting diminished. The only thing I have to do is change the belief system around. So I just have to essentially do something and make the conversation a lot more fun so that the individual is a lot less bored, and so that is able to shift the prediction mechanism altogether, the belief system. It's the same thing, really. Okay, so the whole point is that you ultimately have to do something inside of the environment in order to avoid the outcome inside of your mind that you're actually fearful of. Okay, so you make the conversation a lot more exciting. If the fear is that he's bored, then you have to make the conversation a lot more exciting. So that may actually be you saying something funny, or that may be you being a lot more charismatic, or you changing the personality a bit more, meaning being a bit more charismatic, or something else, a shift of some kind in the conversation itself, in order, to actually convince yourself that he's not bored, that he or she is not bored of you. Now, that's the first option, The second option is acceptance. And acceptance is simply accepting that he's bored, and you talk anyways, right? So that is also very effective. In fact, I think both are very effective. I personally favor the second option. I think acceptance is able to be very, very good. It's very hard also to pull off, but it's very effective. In fact, the reason as to why many people out there that have anxiety is because they're actually very heavy on the avoidance and not the acceptance. So you have to have a very good balance here of exactly knowing that, look, you sometimes have to accept the outcome. There are going to be people out there that think you're weird, or that think bad things about you, or that think that you're physically weak, or that you are this or that, the negative things about you. So these are things that if you can actually accept these ideas over and over and over again and actually reinforce that these ideas are going to happen, then you start giving up control of the environment, and then you stop having anxiety. The only reason anxiety even is there is because you exert a lot of control in order to avoid some sort of an outcome, since that outcome has very weak neural pathways in your brain. So this is how you can ultimately stop thinking about various things. The stronger the pathways are, the less you think about it, since the brain, obviously, it operates on a high priority. Okay, so the highest priority are the weakest reinforced pathways of the brain. Okay, so this is very important, and you should actually rewatch the video over and over again, since I've said many crucial details here, very important information here for you to truly understand the brain, how it actually works at the basic level. Of course, I am not exactly going, to spend 30 minutes here explaining every nuance, okay? But these are the very important fundamentals that you have to know and need to understand in order to not only overcome anxiety, but overcome the cause of selective mutism, and that is, of course, anxiety. Okay, so this is how to stop selective mutism.